if someone asks you right now, like, you either tell me yes or no, you believe in Jesus, and if you do, they will shoot you. And if you don't, then you get to go on with your little life, you know? Like, what are you going to say?
That's heavy. Okay, so this is it. Yeah. Episode number 3. Here we are.
Yes.
Really cool conversation today. We've been chatting about it here and there, but we actually put some structure behind it.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm gonna jump right in.
Okay.
Okay, because I'm excited.
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on in the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Politics, which we'll have a whole episode on politics. We'll have a bunch of episodes on politics, but
yeah,
there's a lot going on in the world right now
waters.
with politics and faith. So
yeah,
the question is, you know, this is going to be kind of our overarching discussion is like, is there a rising fuel of death, of mortality? Is there a rising fear of death or mortality, and is it fueling the return or prominence of Christianity?
Mm-hmm.
And I know particularly last year when I started to get very involved in church again with you.
Yeah.
I felt it. Like I felt early last year, early March, and I know it couldn't have just been the algorithm. Like I feel like I started to see a lot more online. I started to hear friends talking about it. Like the rise in faith last year was insane.
Yeah.
And there's actually studies to support that. Like Bible sales, Bible purchases are going up year over year.
Yeah.
Since 2021. So
incredible.
The purchase of the Bible is up. Like, if that's not an indicator, a factual indicator, like I don't know what is.
Yeah.
And I think like there's a rise in our Gen Z. It seems like it's, you know, our Gen Z is very aware.
For sure.
Right? Like at our church.
Mm-hmm.
How many, I look around, I'm like.
Yeah, so many young kids, like younger, you know.
Like we are the old ones. It's so weird at our church. How many of the high schoolers, you know, shout out Windermere High, like, or Horizon High too, like, how many of them were getting baptized during the service?
Mm-hmm.
It was just insane. And then to see the support network of their friends,
right?
You know, they had all of the seats reserved. They reserved our seats.
Yeah. I'm like, what?
Yeah, they reserved our seats with a water bottle, and then we sat a row behind them, which was all good, man. It was really cool to see. So anyway, we're seeing it firsthand, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So like, why does death and mortality, like, let's dive into it. Let's dissect this one by one. Why does it feel louder lately? I mean, it feels like it's front and center in culture.
Yeah.
Post 2020, let me give you a couple more facts. Post 2020, there was a spike in anxiety disorders globally, not just in the United States. So the pandemic obviously fueled that, but and then we've had a constant exposure to crisis.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, what's going on with Russia right now? What's going on with China right now? There's a lot of big moves in the world happening. So there's this mortality salience. Like, we're more aware of mortality right now. Thoughts?
I don't know.
It's a lot to unpack.
I feel like this is definitely like this is like how you called me out last time. You were like, you've definitely been going through it. I feel like this is something that like you've personally been going through and struggling with, and it's something, you know, I mean, I don't know who else is struggling with like things like this and this like high stressor. I feel like, you know, like it's easy to compound like what you're feeling with real life stresses, and it adds on to your anxiety. And I don't know if it's a combination of everything that you're going through or just a realization, because we're going to church and like we're always talking about, you know, God and Jesus and his return and revelations. And
like what I'm saying is it's not just me. Like I just read
that's
you
what I'm saying.
Stats.
Yeah,
like,
I know.
So it's not just me. You're saying it's not you. You don't feel it at all.
We're like on different sides. We talk about this all the time too. Like I feel like when I die, like I'm not afraid of dying. I'm like not. The only thing I'm afraid of is the sadness my children will feel in Churchill. And, you know, like I feel sad for like missing out on their milestones and like that, like they won't have me there.
And why?
Because
why do you feel like, why is the mortality not scaring you?
I just don't feel like it's final. I feel like I'm going somewhere way better.
So you have continuity, and that's kind of what they say is like when you have faith, when you have a true deep faith, which I do.
Yeah.
I'm there.
Yeah.
I'm just not as there as you, but like when you have that continuity,
yeah,
it ends the loop. It ends the mortality loop of us thinking about it constantly because like you know that there's something better after.
Right.
So you don't have that loop that you,
right.
that you
it doesn't
struggle with.
I don't worry about it. Like I don't spend any time thinking about it.
Yeah. Gen Z reports higher levels of stress than any other generation prior.
And I wonder if that like has to do with socialism. Like I wonder if it's because there's so much like emphasis on like popularity and like, you know, internet and like.
You mean like social culture, not socialism. I was like
social culture.
Yeah.
Sorry for the wrong terminology.
No,
I
you're
guess
good.
like there's so like
I just didn't want Hitler jumping in here.
No, like when we were growing up, I mean when I was growing up, you know,
yeah,
you're a little younger than me. We were out playing, we were out doing stuff. We didn't know what everybody else was doing. Like there was no pressure to do certain things or to be certain places, or it was just us with our little circle of friends having fun at the moment. Like it wasn't like, you know, the way it is now. Like there's so much pressure to be like, you know, even our daughter talks about it. I want a YouTube channel. I want, you know, like I want people to watch my show. And it's like, but why? Like just record yourself and watch yourself if that's what makes it fun. Like we used to do that when I was little. Like we would record ourselves singing on the little, you know, tape recorder or like on my mom's, but it was just for fun for us because we never knew what that was going to turn into. But like now it's like she wants it because she wants her friends to see it, and it's like
it's almost like narcissism on the rise, like me culture,
right?
Like and I think when you are so obsessed with you, I also think that has to drive the fear of death, like the fear of mortality, because you have this self-perception of importance,
right?
Like I am the center of the universe,
right?
And so you start to become more afraid of death.
Yeah,
right?
When you're at the center of everything, you don't have room to put God at the center of everything. And I think it's like hard to balance both, because I know there's really good content creators that are super religious, but it's different.
Yeah,
I guess the way that you file that away, like internally,
right? And like to piggyback off of this whole conversation, I was looking it up. The search, like Google searches, you know, I'm a marketing guy, like I keep up with the trends.
Yeah.
One of the top searches right now going on is God real?
Yeah.
Like that hits pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Globally.
I feel like does the internet like really answer you though? Like does it give you like a non-bias? Like I've never Googled that, you know, like
I know it like I don't think our culture understands that like what's on Google doesn't necessarily mean it's factual.
Yeah.
But I do think it's the only place where people can turn now, right? Is AI.
Easiest, yeah.
Is AI and Google and asking those questions. And I actually just read that, or I just watched a clip. Elon Musk said AI has now exhausted. This is really cool. AI has now exhausted all of human knowledge, all documented human knowledge on the web. AI has already sifted through, analyzed, digested. And so now what it's doing is it's forming its own theories.
Right.
It's postulating on its own. It's creating its own thesis on different topics and referencing itself. So like that's kind of scary, being as AI
Right.
doesn't necessarily have the power to critically think. It doesn't have the power to have controlled studies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, like that was very interesting. So when you start to type, is God real? Like, who knows in the future what sort of theory AI is going to craft and
Yeah.
feed to our kids as they
Right.
ask that question.
Right.
Right. Because it's only going to go off of black and white, you know, versus what we don't know, and creating a theory based on what we don't know. So yeah, I know that's kind of heavy.
Yeah, it's just a lot. Like, I just feel like, you know, like I've heard it said where it's like you get 20 people in a room and you tell them a story, and then they leave the room and go tell their families, their friends, like
Telephone
different
game.
groups,
Telephone
you know,
game. Yep.
you know, you get the last person of that group to come in and they're all telling different stories, you know, but the Bible across so many different countries and origins, it's all the same. And so how can so many people have gone out and told so many different, like the same stories for so long, you know, and it all be the same? Like,
Right.
there has to be like so much truth to that. Like, this actually happened. It's factual. Like, we're not changing anything in the story. I don't remember it any differently. I'm telling you it exactly as it happened, you know? And
Yeah.
that's what's like, that's what makes it like so different. How can you argue that? Like 20 different people telling you the same exact story, you know, 5 years apart. Like, that just doesn't happen. Like, you forget things. You're like, oh, I don't remember exactly how that happened. But these people are like, no, this is exactly how it happened. It's like burned in my memory. This is like exactly what Jesus did. Like, you know, so it's like, I don't know.
And there's, you know, it's funny because one of my arguments to the Bible was, I'm totally going against faith here, but
Yeah.
I'm all for it. But
Yeah.
one of my arguments for the Bible was like, there were so many witnesses to the Sermon on the Mount,
Yeah.
right? Thousands, you know, as far as the eye could see, like
Yeah.
whatever the scripture says, so many witnesses to the Sermon on the Mount, and so many witnesses to the miracles that Jesus performed.
Right.
And I was like, I always defended it with, there was all of this documented literature about it. Like, it was these documented accounts, and that confirmed it for me. I was like, cool, it's real. Like, well, I was on a Chat GPT rabbit hole, and again, I don't, tough to say on the AI side, but
Right.
and it said there are no documented accounts of those other than what's in the Bible. And it said that it would be in the Roman archives, because I guess the Roman culture, like, they had a system for archiving
Right.
major events, and
Yeah.
they actually were pretty good at documenting history.
Yeah, right.
And it's not in there necessarily. It's in there that Jesus existed, but like the miracles aren't in there and things like that. So that was super interesting to me. However, the first documented account was very recent. It was like 20 years after they crucified Christ. 20 years after that, the first written account of his resurrection was there. And apparently that's close enough to validate that Christ is risen. And the disciples, obviously, they took it to the grave with them. They claim that he rose to the grave with them.
Yeah. I mean,
So-
you don't die for something you don't believe in.
Yeah, correct. So that, and then the first, I forget who it was by, but if somebody knows, like, drop it in the comments. But yeah, the first account was about 20 years after, and that's pretty good when it comes to historical terms and
Yeah.
validating
Yeah.
history. So that was really cool. But anyway, I know we went down a crazy rabbit hole there for a
Yeah,
second.
but it's
My
like,
bad.
One thing that I do want to say on that, like how all the disciples, like, you know, wound up dying for Jesus. But it's like, if someone asks you right now, like, you either tell me yes or no, you believe in Jesus, and if you do, they will shoot you. And if you don't, then you get to go on with your little life, you know? Like, what are you going to say?
That's heavy.
Because for sure, if you believe in Jesus, this is not the end for you. If you're questioning it or even have any hesitations, then yeah, you're going to live the rest of your life here on earth, but you're going to spend eternity, you know,
That's heavy though. Like, I'll repeat that. Like, if somebody was pointing a gun at you, and they said, if I shoot you, tell me, do you believe in Jesus? Okay. If I shoot you, if you say yes and I shoot you, you will die. Or I'm gonna shoot you. If you say yes, I will shoot you and you'll die.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes.
If you say no, go on about your life. That's crazy.
You deny him once, he will deny you at the gate. And so, like, I feel like that'll be the end of Ari. But like, that's how sure the disciples were walking with Jesus, being with Jesus. They were so certain that there was life after here, that they all were willing to risk their lives for it and to spread the gospel, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's why I'm like 1000%, you know, I would never say there's no God.
So
no Jesus.
The kind of the last thing that I'll say about it, would you say that the rise in Christianity right now, would you say that it's fear-driven faith? Do you think that people are running toward God out of fear to be saved, or running towards truth because the fear that we have now and the craziness in the world is exposing something more real, that there is a true kind of tangible like feeling to it?
Yeah, I think it's the latter. I think it's definitely, I don't think fear is a good reason to run towards anything, because and honestly, I feel like there's so much of that going on in the world. Like, I think with politics, they're using fear as a tactic and nobody's seeing it. Like, they're just like trying to scare you into liking them,
conforming,
like trying to scare you about the other side, instead of saying, this is what I'm gonna do that's positive, this is how I'm gonna change everything that's positive. They're like, oh well, look at so and so, and they're so terrible because look at what they're doing, and da 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 da. And like, they're putting fear, they're using fear and messing with your own emotions and psychological like beliefs and everything to try to get you onto their side. And that's what the devil does, because God didn't create fear. Fear is not an emotion that comes from God. So I think if you're falling for fear, or if you're afraid of something, I don't think that's an emotion or a feeling that's a faith, you know, that doesn't come from faith, because God didn't create that. God didn't create darkness. Faith
does not know fear.
Yeah, like, it's like fear and darkness are over here, and God, you know, and light and life are over here. So if you're afraid, then it's because you just don't really know.
And then, you know, like you said at the beginning of this chat, that I was going through it now, and you're absolutely correct. But it's funny because I am going through it. So I was, you know, again, Google rabbit hole, ChatGPT rabbit hole. And
those are like your besties.
Oh, for sure. But when I say ChatGPT, like, you know me, I use it to run my business now, like Claude. I use all Gemini, like, but what I like about ChatGPT is I can organize my thoughts into projects, and I have custom GPTs. Like, I have a GPT with my advisor board, and I have like Alex Hormozy, like Grant Cardone, Gary Vaynerchuk. They make up my advisory board, and it actually gives me really solid advice. I have clients organized by project, and I have thoughts, and I have a faith project like dedicated to that. So so the prompts are fixed, and it gives me very solid responses. And then I have like a political custom project. Like, so I'm heavy on GPT. So when I say I'm using ChatGPT, I'm not like is God real? Like, that's not what I'm doing. Like, I'm really dissecting it from at a high level. Totally data driven. But what I found was there is scientifically an increased awareness of mortality when you get to your 30s and 40s. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm 35, so I'm there. Like, I'm right in the kind of the early stages. If it's 30s and 40s, that's a 20-year range. But I'm kind of there where you start to feel mortality. And I think having kids too makes that, you know, a lot more, that thought, a lot more serious. So yeah, I do have this mortality awareness, and I think that's where the faith is coming in, and that's where the church is coming in. And, you know, it's just a question of, is that there as, you know, is it a safety net for me right now to break the loop, right? Or Or can I get to a place in the next year where I truly believe in continuity through Jesus Christ, through faith? And that's the battle that I'm going through internally. But it's good to know, like, it is science backed. Like, we do start to question these things, faith aside, as we get older.
I mean, I think everybody's, on some level, like, thinks about it. It just depends how you process it. I mean, I think everybody, like, thinks about it. Like, you don't want to get like a super bad disease, or like, and it just drag you through everything. So I think like people are always like thinking about it, but
I think
it's how you process it, I guess.
Yeah. And I think like I've attached to things recently, like health driven,
Yeah.
I've done the last 4 days in a row. I've done sauna cold plunge.
Yeah.
And like, I've only been on that for what? Now we're at like week 3, but it's supposed to be really good. Like little background on that is like the sauna, right? The heat, it creates blood flow and your vessels loosen up and they start to expand, and it's super healthy for your heart. And they say people that sauna, I think it was 4 to 7 times a week. So from 4 to every day of the week.
Yes.
They actually have a 26%, their chances of dying from a heart attack decrease by 26%.
Yes.
Factual.
Yes.
So I'm like, oh, wow.
Great for cardio.
That's really cool, especially when you have like an Italian culture and we eat the cheeses and all that good stuff, and the meats. But so that's really cool. But then sauna takes it to the next level. It's like a Nordic.
You mean the cold plunge?
Cold plunge. Thank you. And that's like a Nordic process where you go into this cold plunge and it constricts.
Yeah, that's where you lose
the vessel. Yeah, I know. It is difficult, but like this morning, oh man, it hit.
So what does it do?
Okay, so the cold plunge then, so your vessels are open, and this is why they say to do cold plunge after sauna. That's where the benefit is.
Yeah.
The benefit isn't when you do it opposite.
Flip flop, right?
So what it does, it now all of your muscles and all your vessels constrict, and you're squeezing the bad out, which is pretty cool. And not only that, as soon as you hit the sauna, your body's immediate reaction is to produce white blood cells. So if you have some sort of immune deficiency or like low white blood cell count, like me, like I was getting sick a lot.
Yes.
Literally the whole house was sick a few weeks ago. Did I get sick?
No.
I
mean, I didn't either, but.
No. Well, you never get sick. You're like, they need to test your blood. Like, it is crazy to me. But anyway, so it increases white blood cell count. And then the other thing I've been doing is eating right.
Yeah.
I literally, the guys at one of our businesses bought leadership lunch, and they really wanted Charlie's like Philly cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
Okay. So we got these Philly cheesesteaks. I got chicken, I got veggies on mine, like did the best I could, but I ate it and felt so guilty.
Yeah.
So that night I didn't eat dinner. All I had was my spinach.
Yeah.
Only my spinach, and that was it. So I'm having spinach every night too. But anyway, enough about dieting and health and all that good stuff. Let's ground it again. So anyway, that's why it hit me now. But so then listen to these 2 sentences and speak on it.
Okay.
If eternity is not real, then death does end everything. Okay. That's one sentence. The next is, if eternity is real, then death changes everything. What are your thoughts on that? If eternity is not real, then death ends everything. Right. Because eternity doesn't exist. If it is real, then death, it changes everything.
Right. I think that if death is the end of everything and there's no eternity, then what does it cost you to live your life as if there is an eternity? Like, you don't lose anything by believing that there is an eternity and believing that there is God and just putting your faith in that, and you just live your best life and your morals are good.
Check this out. Let me challenge you.
Yeah.
Your theory earlier.
Yeah.
If you say you believe in Jesus Christ, I'm going to shoot you.
Yeah.
And it ends now.
Yeah.
If you say you don't, you walk away.
Yeah.
Well, what you just said was, I can, what do you lose? What do you lose? But if you don't truly believe, would you say you believe in front of with that gun pointed at you?
The thing is, like, you don't lose anything by, I guess, the risk reward. That's where the end of this conversation was heading. Like, if you live your life believing that, well, death is the end, there's nothing, but you live it as if it did exist, and then you die And it turns out there is, heaven and hell, and God is there at the gate, and he's like, and like, well, how did I do? Like, I wasn't sure, but I kind of believed. I tried to live the best that I could. And, like, you don't know how God's really going to judge you. I know that if you don't accept Jesus, like, there's a very slim chance you're going to, but I just think that, like, the risk reward, like, if you do spend your life believing in Jesus and you question it, but then you turn back to him and you just pray, and like, I know he's always there.
So you're saying, to wrap that up, if I have a high moral standard throughout my life, if I have an extremely high moral standard, I'm talking close to Christ, and I live as if I were Christ, and I have this high moral standard, but in the back of my head, I'm like, man, I'm not buying it. You're saying when I get to the gates, hopefully my high moral standard will be enough.
No.
In the Lord's eyes.
I just think that towards the end of people's lives, they do tend to turn to Jesus, like the guy on the cross, he was up there, he was a criminal, but like right before he died, he turned to Jesus and was like, forgive me. Mm-hmm. And he went to heaven, like, all because, like, right at the end. So if you live a good life, and, God is always, like, in the Bible, it says, like, look out for your brother. Like, it even says it, like, if you claim Lord, like, and he's there and he's real, but you do not do the works, like, you can cast out evil, you can, like, do all the things that, like, you think are good, that you think that Jesus wants, but you don't look out for your brother down the street who needs help. You don't help out children, that need food. You don't do the little things that nobody sees. Then Jesus is going to be like, but you didn't live a life that was how I would have wanted you to live. So I never knew you. And, like, you'll think you were going to get in, and you just don't get in because you were performing instead of actually doing work behind the scenes. And that's what you need to do. You need to live a life that's aligned with the way Jesus lived. Like, he wasn't performing all the time. Matter of fact, he was like, go and be well. Don't tell anyone what I did here. It's like, don't do it for the clout. Don't do it for the clap back. Do it because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It makes sense. So talking about that, I want to bring up something really cool, like talking about where we started. Where we started on this section. Yeah. If eternity's not real, then death ends everything. If eternity is real, then death changes everything. Yeah. Well, check this out. This was sent to me by our friend Billy. Shout out Billy. Billy's awesome. Yeah. He'll send me things every now and then on Instagram. Yeah. Through Messenger. And sometimes they really hit.
Yeah. They're like, I love how, like,
faith driven they are.
Yes. Dedicated.
And it was so funny because he'll send me things and it's so weird because sometimes it's what I needed. And, like, we're not,
you
like,
never know.
We're not like super close friends, but it's just so weird.
It's nice to have someone who aligns with you in that way, that it's like, oh, I thought you'd like this.
Right.
And it's
so,
like hits.
Yeah. And it hit. So I'm going to share it. Okay. Womb to world theory, or I'm sorry, not theory. It's an analogy. Womb to world. Yeah. And what this basically is, like, a baby in the womb. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Think of this baby in the womb like us on planet Earth. This baby in the womb has no concept of what's outside. It's just darkness. Right. Right. They sometimes hear the mother's voice. Let's call it God. The baby has no idea what light is, right? Because it's dark. No idea what air is because they can't breathe. Right. Their lungs aren't working yet. They have or sound, right? They just hear very, low vibrate, very muffled mumbles, and so they really have no idea of sound or talking. There's no framework to their existence other than being in that space. Right. That is their world. Yeah. That is their world. And they're fed. They don't know how to eat with their mouths yet. Yeah. They're fed through an umbilical cord. Okay. So if this baby in the womb could think, they might think that if I ever left this womb, right,
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's death.
Yeah.
That is the end.
Yeah.
Okay. But from our perspective, what happens when the baby's born? The umbilical cord is cut. Wait a minute. That's the only way I knew how to eat.
Right.
The baby now sees a totally new world. When that umbilical cord is cut, the baby should theoretically, in the baby's mind, die.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the baby can't eat.
Right.
Baby has to breathe now.
Yeah.
You know, like you would think, I'm not in the womb anymore. I don't have these fluids that kept me alive.
Yeah.
So now I have to take a breath. Like, so weird.
Yeah.
Now I can open my eyes and there's light. And I can see the light. Like, so the point is that baby does not have the capacity to understand what's outside of that womb.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We are on this earth.
Yeah.
And we know there's a God. I think one thing I could strongly say is there is a God.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to argue. So we know there is a God.
Yeah.
We just can't understand what happens when consciousness ends.
Right.
Does consciousness end? Right? These are things that technology are going to catch up to. And maybe we'll have a better understanding, but like I try to, when I'm feeling the anxiety, right, of this mortality, like this new thing that's happening in my mid-30s, when I think of that, I really try to get closer to the womb to world analogy.
Right.
Right. And I try to think of that, and I think it eases the tension and comforts me. And like Corinthians 5:7, I love this. It's, for we walk by faith, not by sight.
Right.
And I'll end it there. I think you know, we walk by faith, not by sight.
Right.
So we got to believe that in continuity, right? And not that the end is the end.
100%.
Any closing remarks?
Nope. I think that's a good one.
I think that was a good talk.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was a good conversation for today. Cool. So, Casa Siciliano.
Yeah.
Episode 3. Drop a comment. Not here to argue, but if you don't agree, if you agree, drop a comment. Let's build awareness around the channel. Go ahead, send us a direct message on Instagram. We're at Casa Siciliano on Instagram. We'd love to talk.
Yeah.
So
keep it. I mean, let us know what you want to talk about next.
Yeah. Let us know. Let us know what we should chat about next. I have a rough idea, but I would love for somebody to change my mind. So I'm Mike.
And Ari.
And we will catch up with you guys on the next episode. Peace.